All praises, all praises, all praises to the heavenly, holy, almighty creator of infinity, eternity, the universe, and all there is. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit. Hello, family. We are back together again in our wonderful congregation. We're here to increase and expand our understanding of the carnal earthly events through the filter of our spiritual lenses. And so we'll be reviewing an article of a recent tragedy had by one of the brothers of the nation, and it's an examination of the policing, enforcement, the judicial system, the players of this particular tragedy, the historical practices of these agencies, and now with the increase of black voices, with the increase of the spirit of activism, social justice, rebellion against the old order, we will now take into consideration what is going to be a new episode where we will be critically reviewing the United States outline and practice of police enforcement and administration, the cover-ups, the cronyism, the disenfranchisement, and deliberate terrorism of the so-called African American community. And this is in light of the murder of Brother Ahmaud in the state of Georgia. And so we will be listening to some of the information that has been gathered as it pertains to the history of the town and of the sheriff's department of this entity. So, the name of this article is, for a Georgia police force, a bungled shooting case follows a trail of woes. So now, family, we will get into the inner workings of this Georgia police force. And we began. Brunswick, Georgia. When the Glenn County Police Department arrived at the scene of a fatal shooting in February in southeastern Georgia, officers encountered a former colleague with the victim's blood on his hands. They took down his version of events and let him and his adult son, who had fired the shots, go home. Later that day, Wanda Cooper, the mother of the 25-year-old victim, Ahmaud, received a call from a police investigator. She recounted later that the investigator said her son had been involved in a burglary and was killed by the homeowner, an inaccurate version of what happened. All right, family, so starting off with the police investigator, we see that the narrative has began under an extreme falsehood, where this young brother who was killed has now been deemed to be a criminal and was executed rightfully by a homeowner, and that is not the case. More than 2 months after the fatal confrontation, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which took over the case this week, arrested the former officer, Gregory McMichael, and his son, Travis McMichael, on charges of murder and aggravated assault. The charges, which came after the release of a graphic video showing the killing as the two white men confront Arbery, who was African American, made clear the depths of the local department's bungling of the case, which was just the latest in a series of troubling episodes involving its officers. All right, family, so we have a pattern of troubling behavior with this agency. And it was one element of the broader potential breakdown of the justice system in South Georgia. Attorney General Chris Carr, through a spokesman, said Friday that he planned to start a review of all of the relevant players in that system. Carr's office has already determined that George E. Barnhill, a district attorney who was assigned the case in February but recused himself late last month, should have never taken it on. Among his many conflicts, his son once worked alongside one of the suspects at the local prosecutor's office. So we're already entangling in cronyism, association through work, conflicts of interest in relationship. S. Lee Merritt, a lawyer representing the Arbery's family, has called for a federal civil rights investigation focused not only on the men who pursued Arbery, but also the broader justice system. It's small town America, Merritt said in an interview Thursday. Those counties, the local enforcement community there, they know each other well. They recycle officers in between themselves. It's a very tight-knit community. Over the years, Glenn County police officers have been accused of covering up allegations of misconduct, tampering with a crime scene, interfering in an investigation of a police shooting, and retaliating against fellow officers who cooperated with outside investigators. And so, family, that set of circumstances has to go directly into the critical thought of people who stand by the police no matter what. They must consider that these are human beings. They are participating in allegations of misconduct, tampering with crime scene. They are compromising the integrity of the rights of the people being accused of crimes and are against their own brothers in uniform if they cooperate to find out the true lines of justice. You must have a unbiased evaluation when dealing with the police order. And we continue. The police chief was indicted days after Arbery's killing on charges related to an alleged cover-up of an officer's sexual relationship with an informant. The chief, John Powell, had been hired to clean up the department, which the Glenn County manager described last fall as suffering from poor training, outdated policies, and a culture of cronyism. And so, family, it was all beginning at the top. The police chief himself was not a man of integrity, law, and justice. And the agents of this policing force had poor training, were operating on outdated policies. And we know, as the so-called African Americans or the children of Israel, that these agencies are determined against us. So we are the victims of these agents of corruption. The Glenn County Force was the sort of department where disciplinary records went missing and where evidence room standards were not maintained, leading the state to strip it of its accreditation. Arbery was killed after the McMichaels confronted him while he was running in the Satilla Shores neighborhood just outside of Brunswick, the Glenn County seat. But neither of the McMichaels were arrested immediately after the slaying, which occurred February 23rd, about 1 p.m. According to the police report, Gregory McMichael said that he saw Arbery running through his neighborhood and thought he looked like the suspect in a rash of recent break-ins. McMichael, 64, told authorities that he and his son Travis McMichael, 34, armed themselves and began chasing him in a truck. Gregory McMichael had been a Glenn County police officer from 1982 to 1989 and later worked as an investigator in the local prosecutor's office before retiring later that year. Darren W. Penn, a lawyer and a department critic, said the Ahmaud Arbery case was another symptom or sign of a police department that appears willing to protect those that they know. Penn is representing a woman who is suing the department over claims that it failed to intervene with her estranged son-in-law, a Glenn County officer who killed her daughter, a friend, and himself in 2018. County officials and a police spokesman cannot be reached Friday for comment. From the start, McMichael's connections to the police department and the prosecutor's office presented other challenges. The first district attorney assigned the case, Jackie Johnson, recused Jackie Johnson recused herself because she had worked with McMichael. The second prosecutor, Burnhill, advised Glenn County Police that there was insufficient probable cause to issue arrest warrants according to an internal document. Finally, the case moved to Tom Durden, the district attorney in Georgia's Atlantic Judicial Circuit in Hinesville, who this week formally asked the State Bureau of Investigation to get involved, according to a GBI statement. A Justice Department spokesman said this week that the FBI was assisting in the investigation. So now we have the Georgia and the Federal Bureau of Investigation evaluating the circumstances of this case, the players, and the police force. Bob Coleman, a county commissioner at large, was critical of Johnson, saying she should have given the case to the state attorney general, not Barnhill. After the Georgia Bureau of Investigation made arrests this week, Coleman said that's what should have happened a long time ago before the sun went down. They killed a person in the bright sunlight. Glenn County is a marshy, coastal corner of Georgia, about 300 miles southeast of Atlanta, with about 85,000 residents, and is known mostly for its mellow barrier islands and its rich African-American coastal culture. Like many southern communities, its history is studded with racial violence, including 3 late 19th century lynchings. Today, the county is 70% white and 27% black, according to census figures. On Friday, hundreds gathered under the moss-draped trees outside the Glenn County Courthouse to protest, arguing that the handling of the case had been botched as months went by without charges. "I will never call the Glenn County Police to my house," one of Arbery's aunts said. Mario Baggs, a lifelong resident of Brunswick, said he believed that race was a factor in Arbery's killing, given the unfair treatment of black men which has long been received. The black man is an endangered species, Bag said 46. We need justice. We need relief. We need the world to pay attention. And so, family, this is a common sentiment and outcry and cry of the brothers, where the enemy seeks and draws blood. We still petition for the world to pay attention to our plight of detriment. We must evolve in our paradigm. Yet Bag also believes that Arbery's case fit into a larger pattern of dysfunction. Over the last decade, the Glenn County Police Department, which has 122 officers, has faced at least 17 lawsuits, including allegations of illegal search and seizure. One suit accused the department of wrongfully killing an unarmed white woman after officers fired through her car windshield. An investigation into that shooting found that Glenn County police officers had tried to interfere with an inquiry to protect the officers involved. One of the officers in that shooting later killed his estranged wife and a friend. The wife's mother accused the police of ignoring several alarming encounters in the months before the killings. Powell, the police chief, was arrested this year along with 3 other department officials after investigation into a disbanded narcotics task force. The inquiry found that Powell had actively tried to shield wrongdoing by the task force. That led to his indictment on charges including violating the oath of office, criminal attempt to commit a felony, and influencing a witness. But yet, family, 70% of the county wholeheartedly believe and support this police force. Also, the McMichaels set up a donation page to which they have received tens of thousands of members in support and tens of thousands of dollars to assist them with their legal expenses. As details of Arbery's death slowly emerged and were reported in the Brunswick News, Arbery's mother, increasingly distraught, called the department. She said that she had been told one thing, but that the newspaper had reported something else entirely. Cooper's faith was shaken. It's hard when you can't really believe what authority tells you, She said, when you just cannot believe the people that's supposed to look out for all people, and when you question that, it's not a good feeling. Attempts to reach Gregory McMichael late last month were unsuccessful. In a brief phone conversation late last month, Travis McMichael, who runs a company that gives custom boat tours, declined to comment, citing the continuing investigation. The 2 men made a brief appearance in Glenn County Magistrate Court on Friday afternoon, but court officials said they did not enter a plea. No information about their lawyers was immediately available. Questions about the handling of the Arbery's case extend beyond the police department and to Barnhill, the prosecutor who told police there was insufficient probable cause to arrest McMichaels. In an email, Barnhill wrote to the state attorney general's office April 7. He asked to be taken off the case, stating that his son, an assistant district attorney in the Brunswick prosecutor's office, had handled a felony probation revocation case involving Arbery. He also said Gregory McMichael had helped with a previous prosecution of Arbery. Court records show that Arbery was convicted of shoplifting and of violating probation in 2018, according to local news reports. He was indicted 5 years earlier for taking a handgun to a basketball game. Barnhill's office most recently drew attention beyond South Georgia for its prosecution of a black woman in rural Coffee County who had helped a first-time voter use a voting machine in the 2012 election. In 2018, a jury found the woman was not guilty of multiple felonies. Her lawyers called the case a racially motivated, targeted prosecution. J. Peter Murphy, a Glenn County commissioner, on Friday defended the police department's decision to make no arrest in the shooting of Arbery. Murphy said the agency had been advised not to make arrests by both Barnhill and officials at the office of Johnson, the district attorney in Brunswick, who formally asked to be taken off the case 4 days after the shooting. Neither prosecutor could be reached for the comment. Tell me what the agency did wrong when its men and women were told several times not to arrest anyone, Murphy said, referring to the police. What were they supposed to do? Cuff these guys, walk them into the jail, and have no one prosecute them? All right, family. So we see that the McMurrays had protection. They were covered. They had associations with the higher ups. The McMichaels, former police officers and assistants and consultants to the offices of the Glenn County law administrations. And the report from the initial tragedy was outlined to be a burglary and a justifiable homicide, when in fact it was a stalking and a lynching and an execution of an innocent, unarmed man minding his business. And we see the various layers of protection from the basic police force to the prosecutor's office, of various prosecutors' lines up all to the attorney general. And this is an agency with a pattern of discrimination and terrorism and destruction of evidence. And they are protected and they are supported. So what is a disenfranchised and a poor community to do when this agency, their primary goal is to maintain that terror of that community, to protect those proxy agents, their terrorism, organizations, militias, private citizens who are given free rein to arm themselves and attack the community of African Americans, of Negroes, of blacks, whatever you want to term the children of Israel. There is no consideration until there is a public exposure of the evil and the wickedness. And our brothers are still fallen soldiers, innocent victims of this continuing oppression and terrorism sanctioned by government institutions. The black media voices of New will continue to speak out and keep these events, these wicked agendas in the eyes of the public so it can be exposed. We are not the face of crime. We are not the face of detriment of this country. We are the victims. We are the descendants of those brought here in bondage and captivity and were enslaved. We have been the continued targeted victims of the evil agenda of this nation since day one. And the foundation of this nation was built on the blood and the backs of that afflicted population. So we will continue to review the circumstances, the consequences, and the overall outline of this case for Brother Arbery, Brother Ahmaud Arbery. And as with the other fallen brothers and sisters, the hands up, don't shoot, the I can't breathe, the stopped and frisked, the wrongfully detained and mysteriously died. We are the angels under that throne who continue to yell out. We shall continue to raise our voice for the vengeance of the blood of the holy people. And we await the Spirit. We will be unleashed onto this society with all due correction as we bring them into subjection. Until we are together again, family, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit.